Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As Jeremy said, my name is Linda Hitchcock. A little bit of history about me, just so you know that I'm not somebody just standing here reading off of a cue card. I have been doing college counseling for 25, 28 years, long time. I worked for Montgomery County Public Schools for 20 years, doing college counseling, both for students with learning challenges, and also then I worked at a very let's see, stressful, not stressful, that's not a nice word to say, but a very 99% of our kids went to 4 years worth of, or went to college after graduation. So I had a lot of students that I helped there. I also did my summer boot camp uh, at that high school as well. So I'm very excited when I do that camp because it gives the kids the opportunity to get things done and walk into their senior year less stressed. So that's my goal. That's my platform, is to help kids not be so stressed, because it's a horrible feeling when you start your senior year and you just don't know what you're doing. And mom and dad, they're hesitant to talk to you about anything because, of course, parents don't know anything, which you all do, but kids tend to think you don't. So anyway, we'll get started, but that's a little bit about me. Been doing this for a long time. I read applications for Clemson University for a year before that as well. So I have quite a bit of experience. I still keep a lot of contacts, have a lot of contacts in the industry, and even though I don't work in a high school anymore. So anyway, let's get started. So tonight we're going to talk about things for your child to do, whether they are getting ready to go into their senior year or getting ready to go into their junior year. So I know right now AP testing is in the height of things. So I think it started this past week, and I'm sure your kids are a little stressed from it, but hopefully they do well on their AP exams, because that's something that is on an application. It's always good if they take the class and they do well, but also take the test and they do well as well, because that is part of an application. So with that said, they don't need any more stress, I understand, but hopefully they're well prepared and they don't need the stress. They'll do well on the test. So let's move in. What should they be doing this summer? Well, I will tell you that they need to focus, whether they are a uh, class of 2026, sorry, I want to call them a senior because that's what they will be. So coming up senior or coming up junior, whichever grade they are, it's time to focus. It's time to do something productive over the summer. This is not a time to sit around and do nothing. They need to be involved. They need to again do something productive, but also be aware of what they're doing, the online presence they're doing, how they're spending their time, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. So, all right. So, how do they know themselves? What do they need to do to get to know themselves? Well, one thing is, if they don't know, they could do a self-assessment. So there's some great online assessments that they could do. There is something called 16 Personalities, which is free. And I try to tell all of my students to do it because it tells them what kind of student they are, how they learn. It also tells them what kind of careers that might be good for them. Um, Almost if your child attends a public high school in Montgomery County, Naviance is a part of what they will use to apply to colleges, to request transcripts and that type of thing, but it's also a great college tool. So there is a self-assessment there that talks about different kinds of majors and what to major in. Um, it's okay if your child doesn't know exactly what they want to do, but they should have a subject or an area that they like and that they think they want to explore. Um, and that's a good thing to know now. Just so they can, again, be committed to their interest, whether it's a club that they're involved in, whether it's going to be a job over the summer, an internship that they do. But commitment is a big part of college application process. When they look at an application, one of the things that they look for is commitment and how long you've been involved with something and what the child has done. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind when you're talking about doing a job, whether you're interested in business or engineering or that type of thing. They should be doing some type of activity that might be involved with that. I can answer more questions about that if that's concerned, but I always try to steer kids into doing something that they're passionate about. Um, and that's something that they should do, whether again they're class of 2026, class of 2027. So research is another thing that they really need to do. They need to research, especially if whatever kind of college they want to go to, it's time to think about this seriously. Probably an incoming senior has probably been thinking about it quite a bit. But juniors going into your junior year, this is a really big year for them to make sure that your academics um, are good and that you're taking the right classes. Um, Seniors, make sure that they keep with the same type of classes that they've been taking, keep that academic profile. The strength of the academic profile should stay the same. Colleges look for that. So that's another thing, to make sure that your transcript is correct. Look at it, get a copy of it. Every high school can give it to you, can give it an unofficial transcript. You can also see it online where your child, because MCPS does have the transcript online. So you can look at that, make sure it's correct. This is the best time to do that before starting to fill out any application or even going into your junior year. You want to make sure that all the classes are recorded correctly and the grades are correct. So really a good time to follow up with the school to make sure that's done. And again, research your interest. There are a lot of ways to do that. And we'll keep moving on here. Let's see. Sorry. So how to evaluate potential activities, again, aligns with your long-term goals, probably a major that you're looking at or something that you're passionate about. I always try to tell students to find, again, something that they stick with, that they don't do something just for a month and stop and do something else. They should have something that they've, continued with and shown leadership for. Whether or not, not everybody is going to be the president of their class or the president of the SGA, or vice president or treasurer or secretary, that's fine. But there are many opportunities for leadership, such as a committee leadership, taking on a project all of their own. So leadership is important. However, I throw caution into doing too many leaderships and too many activities that, again, fill up a resume. And what I mean by that is a lot of students will do so many things that by the time they sit down to do their resume and to do their application, they have a laundry list of activities, but they don't really align with their goals. They also they haven't been involved in it that long. Maybe they were involved in it for 1 year. I tend to tell students that that's probably not a good thing to put on, especially if they have a lot of activities that they've only been involved in for a year. They want to show activities that they've been in for the long term, consecutively, committed to. That's more important than a laundry list. It's not a matter of how many things you do, it's a matter of what you do with the activities. So again, some students are very focused on sports, and that's great. But what do they do within the group? Do they run drills with their teammates. What do they do other than just playing the sport? So all of these things are very important when you start filling out college applications to for a college to evaluate how committed the student is. So this is a time to sit down and really look at those activities and make sure that they're activities that you love and activities that you're involved in. And it's okay to find activities, and a lot of kids try a job and they may not like the job. That's fine. But this when you're a sophomore going into your junior year, it's fine to do that. Well, now the junior year going into your senior year, this is the time to know what your activities are that you're involved in and continue to be involved in. All right, some good options for the summer. Here's the thing that every student should be doing is read. And I say that, I will tell you that my children were not readers. I almost had to force it on them. But in the long run, they always thanked me because they learned something new, their vocabulary increased. It just was a really good thing to be dedicated to read. It also helps with testing as well. Paid jobs, believe it or not, are a great thing again if they are committed to it and stay with it. Internships. I love internships. They're very valuable. There are a lot of ways to find internships. There are the Montgomery County volunteer website is probably the best website out there, and your son or daughter can search for internships just by typing in internships, it'll come up, or again, for volunteer. Volunteering is crucial. I just can't tell you enough how crucial it is. The students in Montgomery County public schools earn a certificate of meritorious service if they obtain 260 hours or more of community service. And what does this show a college? It shows them that they are willing to give up their time to give back to their community. And I will tell you that that builds character. And if you read any college information, they will tell you that they are looking for students that are building character, that have grit. And how do you have grit? By giving back to your community and getting involved. And again, finding that passion. But the word grit is something that's used. It's one of those buzzwords in the college world. But it truly is when you're looking at an overall picture of an application of a student, they want to know what have they done to give back to their community, or what have they done involved the school? Have they done anything or not? Now, if they have not, this is the time they need to start thinking about it. If they are a senior going into their senior year, and they haven't done a lot of community service yet, they need to do it. I will tell you that this is the time they need to do some community service. Whatever it is, whatever they can find, that this is the time to do it. So there's a lot on this list right here. Pre-college courses are always a good idea if they have time. There's an IT trade. If there have been some students that really are interested in nursing or pre-med, a lot of times they can shadow and ride along in a ambulance and be an EMT, or sign up to learn how to be an EMT. These are all things that are really involved with what they want to major in, and it aligns to that. So those are types of things I can if you have a question about individual majors and what would be good, you can always email me at the end of the presentation and I'm happy to get back to you. But there's so many, I don't want to spend an hour talking about each activity, but there's many. So the other thing that's on this list, and again, it's in front of you, you can read this, but I will tell you that admissions test prep, and yes, we are a test prep company, and yes, I know I'm not selling you this. That's not my goal tonight. My goal is to tell you the real truth, and the real truth is colleges want test. Test optional. Yes, there are schools that are still test optional. Many of them are not. Many of them are coming through now that are saying no, they want testing. I assure you that it's better to have the test than it's not to have the test, depending upon your child. So if your child is a very strong academic student, straight A's, doing well on all of their AP tests, and they're thinking they're going to go in test optional, I'm going to be blunt and tell you this is probably not the best thing to do, because they are looking for tests. Out of all the students that we had last year, and Jeremy can help me out here, we gave 2, 4, 6, 10 classes last year, and every class was full. So I'd say at least 120, 25 kids. Jeremy, am I about right? Is that about how many we had last year in the summer class?
Yep.
Yeah. And out of the 120, the majority of them had testing, and the majority of them were accepted into some excellent schools. It just depends upon your child. However, I will tell you that test prep and taking the test is going to be important. When I sit down and talk to a family, I really go through it and talk about it at length, because to me, test optional is an option, but only an option for non-selective schools, maybe. So again, an area to talk about, but if you have questions about it, happy to talk to you more. So let's see here. Again, passion projects, do something new, visit something. But I'm also going to tell you that time to start visiting colleges. If you've not visited any colleges, this is the time, especially if you have a child that's going to be a senior next year. They need to visit these schools. It is critical that they visit. I have a lot of families that say, no, we're just going to apply and see if we get in. Well, demonstrated interest has become more and more important because of the numbers of students that are applying every year. So it truly does depend upon. I'm reading a comment in here about test optional. You're right. There's a big difference, and I'll back up and answer that question. Test optional is optional, meaning they are still going to look at test scores. Test blind means they are never, ever going to look at the test scores, ever. And test preference means that they're looking for test scores within certain majors. So there's different test optional, but even optional still means that kids that submit their test scores first will look at students that submitted first. So just keep that in mind, that that's an option. It's not always it just really depends. If they're test blind, they will never look at it. And there are plenty of schools out there that are test blind. So you just need to verify that with the school exactly what they're looking at. Okay, so let's go back to visiting schools. Again, the numbers are outrageous, especially because of the test option. Students are applying to 15, 20, 25 schools, which is an enormous amount of schools. However, there are thousands of schools. In fact, I wrote it down. I need to get to my note to find out how many schools there are in the United States, how many high schools there are. Let me see if I can pull that number up real quick for you guys, because I have it. I went in line and had it. Hold on 1 minute. Let's see here. There are total number of public and private high schools in the United States, 26,727. So 26,727 high schools. And if you average every high school about, let's just average them all at 100 kids, 125, maybe even 200, you're talking an enormous amount of students that are applying to colleges. So when you talk about those kind of numbers, demonstrated interest to a college is going to be very important. So go visit. That's one of the things that I will tell you to go do. Okay, excuse me for getting off track there. Let's go back to the presentation and keep going. If you've got any questions in there, then go ahead and let me know. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. So admission areas for focus, as I said, testing is going to be important. Your extracurriculars, again, commitment of extracurriculars, not the laundry list. Application prep, time to start working on those applications. If your student is walking into their senior year, take a look at the essays on Common App. Take a look and see what essay they might love to write about. That's an area that you can start. I was asked in one of the questions when to start your application. So the common application, which is most common for most schools, I think there's almost 2,000 schools that are on the Common App right now. That is a main application for almost every school. There's definitely exceptions to the rule. However, the Common App, you can start filling it out right now. You can fill out your name and your address and your parents' information. You can fill out some of the extracurricular information if you know it. However, that's an area that takes time to fill out and also takes a particular focus to do. So it's definitely not an area to rush through, and a lot of kids tend to do that. But they're not going to be able to fill out any of their high school information. They won't know their GPA. They won't know how many kids are in their class. There's a lot of information that they cannot fill out on that application as of now. Colleges do not open up their portion of their application until August 1st. So none of the individual college applications can be completed until that time. That's why I wait and do my summer workshop until August, is because then we can get it all done during the workshop time and not piecemeal it. So August 1st, again, is when all the actual colleges open up. Some don't even release essays until later. Some schools, California applications don't open up later. So it just depends upon the area that your child's looking at. But there are some things that they can start doing now if they want to. Double check that transcript. Do your college research whether you're walking into your junior year or your senior year, especially into your junior year, because if you want to go into engineering, and some colleges have prerequisites for what they're looking for on an application, then you want to make sure you have that. Some schools, like some of the southern schools, require 3 lab sciences for their application. It's a requirement. So if your child doesn't have 3 lab sciences, it's a good thing to make sure that they do before they start filling out applications. So again, do the college research to make sure you have what you need for the applications and the classes that you need. Financial aid, this is an area that I tell parents all the time. This is very important to start talking to your child now. Right now, have that money talk with your child before they even start applying to schools. Please, I beg you, I beg you. Most important thing I hope you hear tonight is have the financial talk, because heaven forbid your child applies to a school that costs, $75,000 a year without any type of scholarship money. That's quite a bit of money, and someone, whether they're going to take loans or however they're going to pay for it, it's important to have that discussion with your child before you start going to colleges that might be out of that price range. It's a shame to go to a school and fall in love with it just to find out that you can't afford it. So, and not all colleges give scholarships, merit scholarships. There are plenty that do not. So it's important to understand what financial aid is, and financial aid is aid. It is a loan or a grant, and that's what you need to understand. What's a merit scholarship? Who offers them? How do you get them? That's an important part of all of this college research. Parents and students, they need to know this now. And going and seeing schools, again, is very important. So, okay, I think we talked about testing, but I will tell you again, it's time to have this testing plan in place. I know I reiterate it, but I would think this is what I would tell you to do. I would take a look at the list of, there's a test, it's called free test. And you can look on that and tell if a college is test optional or not. And the way to look at it is, again, if it's test blind, then you know that's not anything to worry about a test. And there's plenty of schools that are test blind. But if it's optional, then you need to do your research to find out how many students were actually accepted without test scores. And there is a way to do that. I'm happy to explain that to you. If you want to email me again, I can give you some guidelines how to find that information. But every college has to publicize it. So, and they will tell you how many students that they accept that did not submit test scores, or if they did submit test scores, what the averages were. So again, look at the testing plan and see what days need to happen. That's best for your child. Okay. Transcripts. I talked about this before. Again, make sure that you know what your transcripts are. If your child has a D on their transcript, or if they failed, they obviously have to take the class again if it's a required class. But if they have a D on their transcript, I will tell you it's probably a very strong recommendation on my part that they retake that class to get that D off of their transcripts. Colleges are looking for grades that continue to grow. Some students don't do well in their freshman year, but then in their, sophomore year, junior year, their grades get better. So I'm not going to say never to have a C, but if you have C's, then you have to show that you've worked hard to maintain and grow and have gotten A's and B's. So it's important to know what your transcript looks like. Again, before you start going and looking at colleges, you need to know what that means. I will also tell you right now that when I teach my class, we recalculate transcripts because it's important for the kids to understand that. Colleges, I will tell you, there's very few colleges that do not recalculate a transcript. Especially now, again, with the numbers of students that are applying to colleges and how many schools they're applying to. So they will recalculate it, which means that they will look at the core subjects, and they will, some of them will give credit, give an extra point for a honors class. Some of them will not. Some of them will give points for the extra, credit boost for the APs, and some of them give for IBs. Some of them give them for magnet programs. This is something that when you go to visit a college, your child needs to ask, or emails the representative or the admissions team and ask them, do they recalculate transcripts, and how do they do it? Because again, weighted GPAs, remember, are for everything, which they don't look at gym. They may not look at art. They may not look at a foreign language. You have to find out from the school what they look at. Again, some students that are very dedicated to art and music, and that might be their major, then those classes are going to be very important for them, and they will look at them on the transcript. So again, it really is going to depend on the college, but this is the time to ask them, do they recalculate, and how do they do it? So it's a real eye-opener for kids when you're looking at a GPA of a certain amount, and then you find out, well, they're never going to look at gym, and they're never going to look at all of the classes. They may not look at elective classes. So again, something to be mindful of. All right. Let's see here. Extracurriculars. So we've talked about them. I've talked about them at length. Be involved in your community, build that character, stay with it. If you've been in an activity, you need to stay with it. It's important to do that. Find something that you're passionate about. Again, the student gets an opportunity to highlight 10 activities on their Common App. I think on the California application, I don't believe they get 10. I have to look at it again. Last year, they did not. So I'd have to relook at the new application for California when it comes out. But the focus is 10. And if they have more than 10 and they're substantial extracurriculars, then there's a place on the activity or on the applications to add it. But 10 activities that are, again, I'm going to say important because that's not the word I want, but substantial, that they have been involved in for a long time is important. And again, babysitting, all of these things, if your child has been, taking care of dogs or mowing lawns or doing something that they've been doing since they were in junior high or middle school, then yes, by all means, that's something that they've continued with, and it's responsibility. Any type of thing that they've worked with somebody younger or they've given back to the community, again, it's responsibility. So all of those important opportunities are there, whether they're president, vice president, secretary, or whatever they are. There's still some amazing opportunities out there. So get involved, be focused. All right. All right, college research. So class of 2027, again, time to get organized, time to think about this, what type of school they're looking for, maybe what kind of major they're looking for. If you're on vacation and you go somewhere and there's colleges there, go take a look. See, if that's, there's so many aspects to different colleges and what's out there. So it's time to always take a look to see before, planning the future of applying. The class of 2026, again, time to narrow that list. The time clock is ticking. They'll start applying very soon, and they should have a summer plan lined up by now and figuring out what they're doing, whether it's working or when you're taking college visits or when you're, doing online virtual tours, but they need to be proactive and participate in activities and know that this is the time. This is, from when they graduate from their junior year and walk into their senior year, that they should be focused from now until the end when they graduate. So it's time. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Application prep, I went over that. Class of 2027, start looking at things, build the resume, thinking about schools, scholarships. Class of 2027 can certainly apply for scholarships that are available for them. 2026, your students should have had a talk from their counseling department by now. When I worked at a high school for Montgomery County, myself and the counselors always went in to talk to the juniors before AP test to let them know what was expected regarding recommendation letters. Juniors should be asking teachers, at least 2 teachers, to write a recommendation letter. And they should be asking for them now to make sure that's because a lot of teachers will only write so many letters. So you don't want to wait until the last minute. So your child should be thinking about that. And a lot of these teachers want a resume. And you can, let's see, how do I word this nicely? Your child should give them an activity thing of what they've done, but here's what they really need to do. They really need to tell the teacher why they enjoyed the class. and what activities they did for that teacher and within the class and why they enjoyed it. Because the recommendation from a teacher doesn't talk about all the things they've done outside of school. It talks about how they are as a student. So that's what that recommendation is all about. The recommendation from the counselor definitely talks about all the things that they've been involved in school and outside of school, their goals, how they are as a student, anything that that student wants to make sure that gets into the application, or excuse me, the recommendation letter, they should make sure that that counselor knows it. So they should be crafting that, that paragraph. A lot of the counselors and a lot of the teachers will ask for a paragraph in their own words of why they want to go to college and what their goals are. So that should be priority right now for a lot of juniors, because they need to get these recommendations secured before they walk out of school middle of June. Again, when you're building that resume, they need to know what honors they have. So if they have already achieved the 260-hour community service award, then that would be in there. If obviously if they're a Eagle Scout, or if they know they're going to be a Girl Scout with the gold honor, then that would be on there. There are definitely other honors. There's AP Scholar Awards. There are definitely a lot of awards out there. So this would be something to sit down and think about. What did they achieve? And make sure that that's on a list. So again, and I talked about this, the essay, they can start thinking about their essay. And here I need to tell parents, essays are stories, and they're stories. They're short stories, and that's what they are. They're not a essay that is how do I word this? Other than a subject, and you're writing on the subject, it needs to tell the college a story about your child. So you can look at those prompts, but it's a short story. I truly wish they would change the name of it to say short story rather than to say essay, because kids think of essays as a syllabus and they have to include so many things, and it's not that at all. It truly is a short story. That's something that we take pride in when we do our application class, is to help them with their essay, and they will walk out of the class with a finished and edited essay. It's important for them to know that that will be done, and that's their main essay. I know one of the questions I was asked earlier is how many essays they have to do. I wrote that question down. So there is one main essay that is required. It is something that's on the Common App, and it's required by 95% of the schools. Many colleges have additional essays, and they always change. So that's why I can't tell a student right now you'll find out what the essay is for a specific school, because they don't release them until August 1st, and they definitely change. A lot of them are asked, why do you want to go to that school? Or what has made you choose the major that you've chosen? But again, how many words they are and exactly what they're asking for, we won't know until August 1st. But yes, there's additional essays. I will say that the majority of schools now have additional essays, especially because they want to evaluate, and especially because they get so many applications. The essays help them show the student, and it's just a great way to review an application with a strong application essay. Okay. Keys to success. And so, financial aid. I'm sorry. I missed that slide completely. Okay. And we talked about this a little bit. Class of 2027, parents, again, sit down, look at that budget, have a time to sit down and talk to your students. Both class of 2026 and 2027 There is something on every college website. It's a requirement that they have something called a net price calculator. So if you want to know exactly or have a really good idea of how much a school is going to cost, then go into the college website, look at their financial aid, um, tab on their main website, or even go into the search bar and type in net price calculator. Again, every school is required to have this. They will ask you questions about how much money you make, what's on your 1040, how many deductions you have, all these other things that they're going to ask you. But it's all based on assets and income. So it's based on, some of it's based on just parent income, some of it's based on both. So, but it's definitely an important thing to do, because then you can actually see how much they give, and you will see if they actually have scholarships or not. The scholarship opportunities are endless. However, the students have to apply for them. Most of them, 95% of them, are going to ask for an essay as well. Some of them ask, again, why do you want to study a certain thing? Or, how is, what news podcast you're listening to, and do you enjoy it? I mean, there's so many different essays out there. I can't even begin to tell you how many there are. But again, there are plenty of scholarships. Where's the best place to find them? There's a couple that I like. One is called FastWeb, FastWeb.com. These are search engines. I'd say 95% of the search engines are going to have the same exact, opportunities on them. So once you go to one search engine, they're probably pretty much the same. FastWeb is very well known, and they're I don't know of a scam on there. That's the other thing. Be very cautious of scams. And paying for scholarships. Students and parents, you should never, ever, ever pay to be involved in a scholarship. So there are scholarships that are at the school. You can go and talk to the high school. Every high school in Montgomery County has a college career center. That's where I worked. I made sure that I had a list of scholarships for kids that were applying for, whether they were walking into their junior year or walking into their senior year. So there are definitely scholarships there. A lot of high schools will post it on their website, scholarships that are available. So there's a lot of ways to find them. Banks have them. Insurance agencies have them. You'd be surprised of the scholarships that are available that are out there for merit scholarships. They take work, and the more that your student can do over the summer, the better. So a good point on here, many of the schools, you want to apply for FAFSA, which is free application federal student aid. And federal student aid are loans. So that's a application that you can apply for after October 1st. You can assemble all of your documents now. You can go in and research what's on the FAFSA, and you will get a lot of information. The CSS profile is required for some schools. There's probably about 225, might be close to 300 now, that require this CSS profile. And again, this is the area where you need to do your research, mom and dad, with your child to find out what financial forms are required and how they evaluate financial forms. Do they evaluate if you're a divorced, you're or you're in a divorce or you have been divorced? It's a different scenario for each school. So you kind of have to find out from each school how they categorize it, because each one is different. But 9 times out of 10, I'd say 95% of the time, both parents have to fill the financial aid out if they're looking for financial aid. So again, research the school. again, my services can help with that, but a lot of this is free on your end. Make a spreadsheet. Look at the spreadsheet. Figure out, you know, if the CSS is required. If you're filling out the FAFSA, I recommend that you fill out the FAFSA no matter what your financial situation is. It's always a good idea to fill that out because you just never know if you're going to need a loan. That happened to me when my daughter went to school. You know, I was very thankful that we filled out the FAFSA because our financial picture changed drastically, and we were able to go back and show the school the FAFSA and how it changed drastically, and we were able to get more financial aid because of that. So I highly recommend that everybody fills out the FAFSA. But again, make a spreadsheet. Look at everything that you need to put down. Start making a spreadsheet now. Location, where the school is, how far away from it is it from home? Is your child going to need to fly home? That should be in your financial equation somewhere. All of these things that are so important regarding colleges are important to document them and to keep them in a file and to keep track of them. And the best way to do that is with a spreadsheet. Okay. So I've given you a lot of information, and I appreciate you sticking with me here. But for a successful summer for your child and for you, mom and dad, is to be organized. And again, that spreadsheet's going to help you organize it, but to sit down and make a summer plan, what is it going to be? We're working, we're doing community service, we're going on college visits. What is it? Be mindful of a plan, because it's going to help. And especially if you've got a senior that's there for their senior year, because once, August 1st hits, they should be having that application in line and starting to do things, because believe me, come summertime, come when they walk into school in September, they don't want to be behind. They want to have as much done as they can. They're walking into their senior year. You're talking lots of events for seniors, all the homecomings and all the things that happen in the fall, especially if they're involved in a sport. So this is the time to get organized as much as you can. And sit down, and here's one tip I will tell families. Have a night and just tell your child, okay, on Sunday night, we're going to talk about college for an hour or 2 hours. Keep it to one night, because I found as a parent that if I started talking about college every day to my child, they got very stressed. And it ended up in a bad situation where my daughter, at the end of her fall of her senior year, she wouldn't even talk to me about college, just because we just did too much of it. So I found with prioritizing and saying, okay, we're going to come to the table on whatever night or day it is, and we're going to figure out where we are and align our goals of where we are and what we need to do and keep on track. That's whether you have a junior or a senior or even a freshman and you're listening tonight. College should not be something that's talked about every day, all day, because it will stress them out. I promise you. So try very hard to make a plan, stick to it, understand that this is as stressful for your child as it is for you. Some of you've may have been through this before with another, child, but every child's very different, and their college goals and their college journey is very different. So again, if I can give you any piece of advice, the biggest thing would be just to try to take it one day at a time. And if you need help, reach out and get the help, because again, sometimes kids just don't listen to their parents. And you want to make sure that they're getting the correct advice, and not just, on the internet and listening to other kids that have said, oh, applied to 35 schools and I got into every one of them. Don't believe everything you hear, and don't believe everything you read. So again, find out, authenticate that information that you've learned. If you see something on a college website and you're not sure of it, reach out to the admissions officer and find out. As a parent, I would suggest, if you're talking about financial aid and reaching out to the colleges or cost or scholarships, that's great. But if it's anything else, it should always come from the student. It should not come from the parent whatsoever. When I read applications from Clemson and I would get all these information from parents that said, my child is this, my child is that, I was like, it's great information and thank you so much. I want to hear from the child, right? I want to know, does this child really want to come to Clemson, or is it just the name of the school that mom and dad want them to go to? So just be mindful of that you can do a lot of research, and reaching out to the schools, great. Just be cautious of what you're asking them, because sometimes this could, you could send an email through your child's email account if you want. Just make sure that it sounds like a 17-year-old child that's sending this email, because as a college reader, I could tell all the way when it came from a parent. So, and that's the other thing about essays. I will tell you that happens a lot. I will throw in AI. I had a student the other day who wanted to write a letter regarding being deferred to a college, and they wanted to write a letter and they sent it to me, and I went in and did AI and found out that half this entire letter that they wrote was from AI. So be very cautious of that. And parents, be very cautious of writing it for your child, because that again, it will come through. So this is your, great time to help your child. And I want, again, I probably did way too much for my child, because at the time I was a college counselor and I knew it all. So that did not sit very well with my own child, I will tell you. So as a parent that's been there, done that, the best thing you can do is just to sit back and let them tell you what they want, and then work with them and figure out how you can make them happy and yourself happy as well. I think I answered all those questions that were in there, but throw some out if I did not, and I'm happy to go over them.
Hi, Linda. This is Jason Dirk. Brandon Dirk takes classes there. So I had a question about the volunteering hours, the 260 hours. Are those the SSL hours you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
they get a certificate of meritorious service from the state of Maryland. And they get that when they graduate. But if they've already obtained that 260, then that's an award that they can put on their application. So yes, it's SSL hours.
All right, thank you. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, did I miss any questions that were on that list?
I had one more question. Yeah.
Oh, go
Sure.
ahead.
Sorry, I'll go ahead. The scholarships, I went to FastWeb while you were talking. So how does that work? Like you put in your name, you put in the child's information, right? And then what happens next?
So they will send them information about what scholarships. So they have you fill out a whole profile about, what you're interested in or what you've done. And then they will tailor those scholarships to the child. And obviously you put in the grade of the child. So they will send scholarship opportunities to the student and say, you should apply for
Oh,
this.
that's
You should
great.
apply. Yeah, you should apply for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So it's very good. But again, they're very time consuming. So the sooner they start, the better. And again, 90% of them just don't pay for one. And a lot of them are based on financial need. So you need to know what kind they are. So, and they will tell you that qualifications based on financial need. And then you'll know what that financial need is. They'll give you a threshold that tells you what they're looking for.
So do
So
they almost throw too much at you and you kind of have to weed through it?
you do.
Yeah, you
Yep.
do. Okay. All
You
right.
do. You absolutely do. That's why it's so time consuming, is because you absolutely do.
Gotcha.
So Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add that this is really one area that the parents can really step in and do a lot of the work, and not leave it up to the kids, is to go through and weed through all those opportunities and then bring them to your child and say, these look good. If you have time to allocate to applying to one or two, that really saves the kid from having to do that. If you can do that legwork now, they can work on it over the summer, or if they're a rising junior, they can work over it next year. Because that's another thing to understand, is that you don't have to wait till your kid is a senior to do a lot of these applications for the scholarships. You can start doing it now, ahead of time.
Okay, no, that's really good to know. You said there are a lot of them are based on financial need, and if you, if you may not need that financial need, um, or meet those needs, is that, I mean, are you weeded out of 90% of them, or how does
Uh,
that?
yes, most of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the majority of them, yes, they're going to take the need first. But there are some that I've found the kids have gotten, even though their parents didn't need it, because nobody else applied. So
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah, I think it kind of depends upon how much it's worth.
Okay.
So if to me, if it was worth $500 and it's based on financial need, then I might not go through that process, not unless if it was an easy one. But if it's worth, 1,000, 2,000, 3, 4, even more, I probably, even though it says it's financial need, I would still do it. I guess it just really depends upon what they're asking for. If they're asking for the student to fill out the FAFSA form, then they're looking at that financial need seriously. So again, every application is really different, and that's where Jeremy said the parents can really help with this. I went through and did some for my daughter as well, and there were some that were financial need based, but we applied to them anyway because it was like, well, it was worth the effort to try. We filled out probably about 50 applications, and she got 10 outside scholarship
Really?
opportunities.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah.
That's really
So
good.
I will say that some of them weren't as hefty as what I would have liked, but they were out there. So yeah, so they're out
Okay.
there. Yeah, they're
Something
definitely out
to,
there. And again, the scholarships that colleges offer, there's a lot of merit money out there that colleges offer your child. You just need to know what they are. So there's the presidents and some of them require an extra essay and an extra application. So like again, during the class when I do that with the kids, I sit down and say, okay, this school, Boston University's got a presidential scholarship, and you got to fill this application out, and it needs to be in by a certain time. So there's certain ones that the kids need to apply for that are outside of the application for that specific school. So definitely, again, that research
so
going into that college website and looking at their financial aid page, and then looking scholarships, it will tell you if they have merit scholarships within the school.
okay, yeah, that's great. And then the one thing you did mention something called free test. And this is about how many kids were accepted with the test without the test scores. Did you
Yes.
say free
So
test? Is
so
it freetest.org or is it free test?
nope, it's called C.
Oh,
C is in cat.
uh-huh.
Um, S is in Sam.
Oh,
No.
okay. No.
So, oh, Jeremy, help me out. Oh, my
Uh,
mind just went back. Um, oh, Jeremy,
oh,
what is
C.
it when we go into the school's website? Golly, I have it. I
Oh,
have
the CDS, yeah, the common
Yeah,
data set. Every school
yeah,
has to
common data
publish
set.
the common
Sorry.
data set.
Common
So
data set.
every college has something called a
Oh,
common data set.
got it.
So
Okay.
you type in, University of Maryland common data set. It'll come up with an information. You'll be looking at last year's, not this past year's. You'll be looking at not 24, 25. You'll be looking at 23, 24. And you go into it, and that common data set has an enormous amount of information, like every financial piece about the college you can possibly see. They're fascinating, but they have everything. But the one area that you want to look for is incoming freshmen. And then that will tell you how many students submitted test scores. It will tell you what their average test score was. It will tell you what they look for in an application, how many recommendation letters. It's in there. Everything's detailed. It's very detailed.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It's kind of one of those secret tools out there that not a lot of people know about. A lot of private college counselors will never tell you about a common data set. So
Oh,
I
really?
tend to tell people, yeah, I tend to tell people a lot about them because they're very helpful.
That's
And they're
awesome. Yeah.
also very helpful about how many professors are on staff and what they pay them. And
Oh, wow.
it's a fascinating report. Yeah,
And
it
that's
really,
all free.
it's
Wow.
all free. And every
Wow.
school has to have one. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That is a gold mine.
It is if you have a lot of time to research, that's for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Um, all right. What colleges are still test optional was on the list. Again, I'd have to look them up myself. Um, Schools are still coming out saying that they're requiring tests next year. So
Well,
it's hard for,
we just went to a bunch of schools like Bucknell, Dickinson, Drexel. They're all test optional. Every one of them said they were test optional.
yeah, but you need to ask them how many kids submitted test scores and how many kids got in. That's
Right,
the
right,
numbers you need to ask them. They can tell you
right.
that. And here's the other thing,
American too. Yep.
parents, if you're listening, so when you're a CEO of, or you're a president of a college,
Yeah.
and your numbers drastically went up, you charge $75 for an application. Before test optional was even thought of, you received 25,000 applications at $75 a pop. You went test optional, you're now receiving 55,000 applications. You do
Wow.
the math.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
You do the math. You're
Yeah,
president of a college, wouldn't you be test optional? And remember, it's an option. It's not test blind. That's a big difference. And there are plenty of schools that are test blind, plenty. So, but again, how many are they taking that are test optional? And Dickinson, and I, again, this is something I could talk to you one-on-one about, but some of those schools are very small. And like Bucknell, I know it very well, and I know Dickinson very well, and they're small schools. And again, their application numbers have tripled since they went test optional. So that's an important piece. But the other thing that I need to tell parents, and you all need to listen to this, if you've got a child that's getting straight A's, okay, taking AP classes, taking honors classes, getting A's, taking AP tests, getting 4s and 5s, they get that application and they don't see a test score, there's a question mark there. There's a big red flag. Why? Why did they not take the test? So did they not take the test because of illness or sickness, or are they an athlete? Are they being recruited? That's a whole different story that people don't even realize, that you know athletes, they probably will take athletes without test scores. But for somebody that has done really, really well in high school and really well on AP test scores, why they're not taking the ACT, the SAT is a question mark. It would be a red flag when I read applications. So just something to think about. You put yourself in their shoes and what
yeah,
they're seeing.
yep. I hear you.
Yeah, I'd also add that we've seen in the past year the transition from the COVID era to now, that a lot of students are choosing to self-submit regardless of whether or not the school is test optional. So you have to take in consideration that a lot of these schools, even though they are still TO, the students themselves who are applying have decided that they want to have that on their application as a differentiator, versus the other students who might not be submitting it, and they see it as a bonus. You know, we always say test scores are a way to validate the student, not a way for them to limit themselves in their application. So if your
Right.
student has a score that's somewhere in the range that you see on the common data set, it really behooves them to submit that score.
Yep, which is why we're here. Yep, absolutely.
All right. Any other questions that we haven't answered?
I think we covered everything that was submitted.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, I thank you for visiting us. And if you have any questions, there's my email. There's Jeremy's email. We're happy to answer you any questions. Jeremy always sends out the video afterwards, and also a resource list as well. So hopefully that will help you. I thank you very much for being with us. And again, appreciate your time to sit and listen.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.